Greetings, everyone. Well, this is one that I've been waiting to do for a very long time. This is the last of the holiday Blu-ray and DVD updates. This is a big one. Not in terms of the number of titles, it's only going to be one title, but it's a big title. It's easily one of my personal most anticipated Blu-ray releases ever since the format started. Well, you probably already looked at the title up above, so I won't waste any time. We are, of course, talking about the 50th anniversary collector's edition of my all-time favorite epic movie, Lawrence of Arabia. And we're going to take a closer look at this bad boy today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Now, Lawrence of Arabia, of course, is the epic film by master filmmaker David Lean of, Dr. Zhivago fame and numerous other films, based on the real-life story of T.E. Lawrence in the period of World War I. I didn't really know much about the film back when I first saw it, but I had heard of it. My parents, I think, had mentioned it a few times, but I really knew nothing about it. I had seen some other epic films, of course, like Ben-Hur and stuff like that, and the Ten Commandments and whatnot. So I just kind of assumed it was going to be another like mythology-based or biblical-based historical epic like that. So when I got my first experience with it was actually back in 1989 when the first major restoration was done to the film. Prior to that, I think it ran about 2 hours and 40 minutes, thereabouts, and the full length, almost 4 hour long or 3.5 hour long cut had not been seen since the original theatrical presentation back in the 60s. So in 1989, there was this huge effort to recover as much of the lost footage as possible and put it all back together to make as definitive a director's cut as possible. And they managed to get it up to 216 minutes, as I recall. Now, I was a member of the Columbia House Video Club at the time, and every month in the video club they would have their so-called director's selection. So I got quite a few good movies from that. I remember there was a big anniversary edition of The Wizard of Oz that I got through that. And then one month it was Lawrence of Arabia, and I thought, hey, I've never seen that movie, heard good things about it, why not check it out? So I grabbed it and got it in the mail, popped it in within a couple days of receiving it, and I just fell in love with it instantly. I thought it was just a fantastic movie. I had recently become a big fan of Dune, so I was just a sucker for anything set in the desert. That's, I think, what drew me in initially, and then the more times I watched it, the more I got out of it, the more I just fell in love with the characters and the cinematography and the music and just everything about it. It's just a fantastic, fantastic film and has easily become my all-time favorite epic movie. Now, this version has been further restored, and this actually runs 227 minutes. So they actually have an additional 9 minutes of material that has been long lost and at long last reinstated into the film for this edition. So this is the biggest restoration we've had since the 1989 restoration, and they really did a fantastic job. I haven't sat down and watched the entire film yet. I just kind of skimmed through it, looked at a few favorite scenes to get a look at the picture quality, and it really is amazing. Apparently they did actually have a limited theatrical run shortly before the Blu-ray came out of a 4K digital master print that they were showing digitally in some theaters if you were lucky enough to be in the area. Of course, me being in buttfuck BC, I didn't have that option, unfortunately. But yeah, one of my, I guess you could say one of the things on my own personal bucket list would be to see Lawrence of Arabia on a big honking screen in a theater. because that's the way it's really meant to be seen. So let's take a closer look at the collector's set here. There is, of course, a standalone set as well. The standalone set, I believe, is just a single disc. This version has a few more discs, but we'll take a look at the discs when we get to them. So first off, we have this nice plastic slipcover. On the back, it basically gives you a breakdown of all the contents there. It's quite nice, and like that. And I just actually before we actually get in here good and proper, I want to show you something. Now, you may be thinking, wow, that is a huge set for just a Blu-ray set. Yes, it is. If we do a side-by-side comparison, this is a Laserdisc. This is the Criterion Laserdisc of Blade Runner. And they're pretty much the same size this way. Yeah, I mean, if you look, this is a Blu-ray set that's the size of one of the old Laserdisc collector's sets. So that, to me, is a big plus right there. We don't often get collector's sets of this size and heft and impressiveness, like physical impressiveness. So that's pretty cool. So we just take the slip cover off here. It just slides off nice and easy. See here, winner of 7 Academy Awards. Deserved every single one of them too, might I add. There we go. So we'll just put this down here. So then we get into the set proper. Nothing on the back. But we have this nice little ribbon here, which actually makes it really easy to just slide out the set like that. And there we go. So here we have a big sturdy cardboard box. Now I should mention the day this came out, I saw we got one copy in the store at Future Shop, and I held it in my hands and drooled over it a little bit. And then, but unfortunately I was between paychecks, so I couldn't grab it at the time. So payday came around, went to get it, it was gone. It wasn't until around Boxing Day, I guess it was Boxing Day actually, I went there to take advantage of some of the sales. Just on a whim, took a look in the box sets, and we got 3 more. So I picked the best looking one of the 3, and it is now mine. But I noticed going back a few days later, oh, actually there's another ribbon here, which allows us to just take out the book. And there we go, this beautiful hardcover book. So I went back a few days later, and the other 2 sets were still there. So I guess there was just me and one other person in the entire city who wanted this set. So let's just take a quick peek here. This is a massive, massive, beautiful book. A nice little foreword by Steven Spielberg, which is, where are we here? There we are. And if we just sort of take a little flip through it here, you really get an idea of just how grand the scale was back in these days when they would make these big movies. I mean, nowadays a big crowd scene like that would probably be done with CG. Back then, they did it for real. Literally, cast of thousands in these old epics. And that's one of the things that makes them so spectacular and so special and magical, you know, is the fact that they were able to do that. Just the logistics of having to manage that many people in such a huge, you know, foreign setting like this, and it really is just mind-blowing. So this is a very beautiful book. Basically gives you a lot of insight into the making of the film and whatnot. And then here we actually do have a film frame, which is a little hard to see. However, we actually use the back, I think, of the, can sort of reflect some light in there. A little tricky. There, you can sort of see it there. Anyway, so you get an actual film frame. So this was originally shot on 70 millimeter. Originally, actually, in theaters, it was shown in Cinerama cinemas. It was not technically a Cinerama film, because true Cinerama is actually the 3-strip process of 3 35mm films. But a lot of 70mm films were actually shown in Cinerama theaters, because At the time, I guess you could think of it as early IMAX. They really didn't have IMAX theaters back then, so if you wanted to have the big spectacles shot on 70 mil and give them the best possible presentation, Cinerama was really the best choice. 2001, Space Odyssey was another one that was shown in Cinerama theaters. So here we have the Blu-ray proper. Yes, after getting through all the goodies, we finally get to the actual Blu-ray. Now, this actually does have pretty much the same cover as the regular edition. However, it is a slightly thicker case. And the reason it's a slightly thicker case, we actually do get an insert with chapter listing, which is quite nice. There we go. Ads for a few other movies. Slightly thicker case because it's actually 4 discs. Yeah, not too shabby, eh? So yeah, 3 discs. Basically, 1 disc is the movie. Yes, the entire movie is on 1 disc with some extras, and the other 2 discs are all extras. And then the 4th disc here, you can probably see, is actually the soundtrack, the beautiful orchestral soundtrack by Maurice Jarre. That's right, is included as a bonus, which is fantastic. I immediately ripped it to my computer to listen to at my convenience. Fantastic, gorgeous, epic soundtrack, and it sounds fantastic. So, going over the extras here, we got quite a selection. So, disc 1, we have an all-new 4K restoration of the feature film. Apparently, one of the reasons it took so long to come to Blu-ray was because the actual original film elements weren't in the best of shape, so they had to do a lot more restoration than other classic films. Sorry, just adjusting the insert here a little bit. I don't like it when they're sticking up past the plastic. Sort of that, sort of one of my little OCD things, I guess you could say. Yeah. So they had to do a lot more restoration work, and then plus they, I guess, recovered the additional 9 minutes of footage, so they were able to reincorporate that. And then you also have Secrets of Arabia picture in graphics track, so it's kind of a picture-in-picture info track that you can watch along with the movie. And that's it. That's all that's on the first disc. So it's kind of like, think of it like a Super Bit Blu-ray. The first disc is nothing but the movie. Yeah, so I guess, the regular edition is a 2-disc set. So disc 2, you get Peter O'Toole revisits Lawrence of Arabia, the making of Lawrence of Arabia documentary, a conversation with Steven Spielberg. So it's, David Lean is another one of those directors who had a huge influence on a lot of today's filmmakers, such as Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all them. So we get a nice little interview with Steven Spielberg talking about how much he loves. I've seen other interviews with Spielberg, and he's definitely a huge David Lean fanboy. He just loves David Lean stuff, and I'm right there with him, man. You have Man Jordan, The Camels Are Cast. In Search of Lawrence, so basically trying to figure out who was going to play Lawrence. Of course, ultimately decided on Peter O'Toole, but you get some insight into the casting process there. Romance of Arabia. Wind, Sand, and Star. Wind, Sand, and Star, The Making of a Classic, the 1970 version. I'll mention why that's significant in a moment. Newsreel footage of the New York premiere and theatrical advertising campaigns. So if you just have the regular edition, that's all you get. You get the movie on disc 1, and you get that second disc of extras. Exclusive to the gift set, you get a third disc of extras, and here's what's on it. Never before released deleted scene with an introduction by Ann V. Coates, so even more material that has never before been seen, so that's pretty cool. The Lure of the Desert, Martin Scorsese on Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence at 50, a classic restored, so all about the hell they went through to restore it for the 50th anniversary. In Love with the Desert, King Hussein visits the Lawrence of Arabia set. And that's actually, King Hussein is one of the real-life characters that I believe was the inspiration, or one of the inspirations for some of the characters in the film, so that's pretty cool. In Love with the Desert, I'm going sideways here. Wind, Sand, and Star, the original 1963 version. Now, the difference there is the original 1963 version, I believe, has more of a focus on the technical aspects of filmmaking, whereas the 1970 version is a little more press kitty, so it's a little bit more, not as technical. So it's interesting to have both cuts of those. Now, in terms of running time, they both run around the same time. I think the 1963 version is about 30 seconds longer. I mean, they're only about 6.5 to 7 minutes long to begin with. But it is really cool to finally have both versions of that. I think the old 1989 version only had the 1970 version of that. So it's nice to have the much rarer or less frequently seen 1963 cut of that finally available. And we have archival interviews with William Friedkin, Sidney Pollack, and Steven Spielberg, and trailers and TV spots. And then the soundtrack CD has the original score from the film, including 2 previously unreleased tracks. Wow. So there is a whole pile of stuff. So in short, one heck of an awesome set. As someone who has been a fan of this film for, 1989, so 25 years almost, I can honestly say I am overjoyed that it was well worth the wait. I'll put it that way. It was well worth the wait, and definitely a collector's set that any fan of the film is going to be pleased with. See, it all just fits right back in there quite nicely. Keep our little ribbon there. Then we slide it back in like so. And watch how this little ribbon becomes invisible. And there we go. It's invisible. That's it. And watch how this little ribbon becomes invisible. It's amazing. It's like magic, man, I tell you. There we go. Okay, maybe it's not totally invisible, but whatever. Anyway, that is pretty much it in a nutshell. If you are a fan of the film, you absolutely owe it to yourself to get this for your collection. And as far as collector sets go, it's actually not that expensive. This was $65. Now, I compared this sort of jokingly to the old Laserdisc collector sets. Well, take something like this, for example. The old One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest collector set. This, back in the day, would have been about $150, $200 for the Laserdisc. So here, we're getting the Blu-ray, fully restored, beautiful high-definition transfer, loaded with more extras than you could ever fit on a Laserdisc set, for like almost a third of the price. So I don't want to hear any complaints about the price, because that is a damn good deal, especially for something like this. This is one of those few epic movies that I can quite comfortably watch over and over and over again, and I just never get sick of it. It's like one of the few, it's one of those ones that I'll often put on just to sort of watch a little bit of it, and I'll end up watching the whole thing. Even though it's 4 hours. There's not many other 4-hour-long movies in my collection that I can say that about. But Lawrence of Arabia is the exception. Alrighty, folks. Well, that is it for the holiday Blu-ray updates. But that is not it for just other stuff. There's a lot more to come. I thought that actually while we're taking a look at a big collector set like this, we would take a look at some other of my big collector sets that I haven't taken a look at before. So stay tuned for those in upcoming videos. And yeah, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.